All right, it's my pleasure to welcome you all to the second session of this webinar. Like I said in the first webinar, this is our free gift to our teens parents as we clock 2 years. This is our 2 years anniversary, and we decided to package this free webinar for our teenagers' parents so that they could have a better relationship with them. So it's my pleasure to welcome you all to the second session of this webinar. The first session with Irene Banwell was all the wow. She talked about building a healthy relationship with your teenager, and it was that session was full. In this session, I'll be handling sex conversation with your teenager. Sex conversation with your teenager. So if you're just joining us, please just put down your name out there in the comment section. Just put out your name. Let's see you. Say hi to us. Tell us your location, where you're watching us from. Just put it down at the comment section. All right, you're welcome. Tola, you're welcome. From Port Harcourt, you're welcome. All right, in this session, we'll be talking about sex conversation with your teenager. Sex conversation with your teenager. I want to start by saying that parents are the single largest influence on their teens' decisions about sex. Parents are the single largest influence on their teens' decision about sex. In comparison with the influence of media, in comparison with the influence of friends, in comparison with the influence of siblings, even the church, parents occupy a higher percentage statistically on their ability to influence their teens' decision to have sex. But it's so unfortunate that parents do underestimate this power by shying away from having sex conversation with their teenagers. They actually shy away from this. As such, they underestimate their powers to influence their teens' decision to engage in sexual activities. Sexual conversation between a parent and a teenager is very important. It is very important because it has the potential to form a benchmark with which your teenager measures other information. The conversation can form a benchmark against which your teenager can measure and compare other information out there about sexuality. So both the information in the internet, information in the videos, information from friends, information from peers, whatever conversation you're having with your child, with your teenager, he uses that information, he uses it as a benchmark to measure all other information he gets out there about sexuality. That is why it is very important. Secondly, sex conversation between a parent and a teenager is very important because it forms the reason why your teenager will want not to engage in sexual activities. If you are the kind of parent that do have sexual conversation with your teenager, because of that particular reason, because of that particular conversation you people always have regularly, your teenager will not want to get involved into sexual activities. So this is the reason why sexual conversation between a parent and a teenager is very important. So the era of shying away from such topics has come and gone. The era of shying away from such conversations has actually come and gone. You need to start now to have that conversation. It is very true that between the parents, sex conversation creates anxiety both for the parents and the teenagers. Okay, if you just joined us, please just put down your name and the location where you're joining us from. Just say hi at the comment section. We want to see you, want to meet with you. All right, like I said, it is it is very true that sex conversation creates anxieties between parents and teenagers. For parents, the parents are actually uncertain about how to start the conversation. They actually, where do I actually start from? That is their problem. Where do I start from? During the first session, Irene Bangwell made said something. She said that every question your teenager asks is an entry point for you. You can turn it into a teaching moment. Every question your teenager asks you, you can turn it into a teaching moment. So when your teenager comes with different kinds of questions, just turn it into an entry point where you can teach something. So don't be confused about how to start the sex conversation with your teenager. Secondly, sex conversation can also create anxiety for both parents and teenagers because at times parents are scared of providing more information than the teenager is ready for. The parents are actually scared of providing more information that the teenager is ready for. As a result, they will prefer not to talk at all, let them not talk about it. But that's not the best thing. Thirdly, is that parents are actually scared of their teen's reaction. You know, my teenager might say I'm sounding awkward, they might say I'm sounding old fashioned, and all that. And for this reason, parents will prefer not to speak anything about sexuality to their teenagers. Another reason why parents might want to shy away from having sex conversation with their teenagers is fear. They're actually scared that their teenager might not open up to them. They're actually scared that when they start up the conversation, their teenager might not open up to them. But I want to let you know something, that it is high time you start up that conversation and wipe away those anxieties. The earlier you start the conversation, the earlier the anxieties will keep off. Also, for the teenagers, sex conversation can also create anxieties for them. It creates anxieties because they do not know the right language to use to approach their parents. They don't actually know the right language to use to approach their parents. You know, that dirty language they heard outside, they wouldn't want to approach you with the same dirty language. As a result, they will just prefer to bottle up everything within themselves and share it with their friends instead of you. So this is one of the reasons why your teenagers might not like to come to you to talk about sex. Another second reason is that the teenagers feel that their parents might not be open to the conversation. They just feel that parents might not really be open to the conversation when they come to them. So this actually creates a gap. It adds up to the gap. Another thing is that your teenager might not want to ask a question that shocks you as a parent. He might not want to ask a question that would displease you, or a question that will shock you. You know, exposing a behavior, maybe if it's a parent that is battling with sex abuse or pornography or something, he may not want to approach you for help because he wouldn't know how you will feel, your reactions. You might feel shocked that my child is into pornography. So because of this reason, your teenager might not like to come to you. Instead, he will go sharing with friends. Another reason why teenagers might not want to approach their parents, they might not want to start up the sex conversation with their parents, is because they wouldn't want to reveal some sexual behaviors that might attract criticism and even punishment. You know, parents most times, immediately they hear their child is into this, immediately they just, it's either they criticize the child or they punish the child. So instead of coming to you and being punished or being criticized for this particular thing, they will prefer to keep away. They will prefer to keep away from having that sex conversation with you. So these are actually the reasons why both parties, both the parents and even the teenager, would like to avoid having sex conversation with each other. But that's not the best thing. The earlier you start the conversation, the earlier the anxieties will be wiped away. The earlier you start up the conversation, the earlier the anxieties will be wiped away. Okay, now let's look at what should be in my sex conversation with my teenager. Like some parents, they might not know where do I actually start from, what do I actually tell him or her. Let's look at what should be in my sex conversation with my teenager. Some parents, when starting up sex conversation with their teenagers, they exclude all the positive topics associated with sexuality. They exclude the love, the friendship, the healthy relationships, and they make use of all the negative aspects, such as teenage pregnancy, sexually transmitted diseases, sex abuse, and exploitations. They just package their sex conversation into negativity and they release it into their teenager. Such one sided conversation doesn't form a balance in the mind of your teenager. Such one sided conversation doesn't form a balance in the mind of your teenager. And it wouldn't help your teenager to make the right decision. Such one sided conversation cannot help your teenager to make the right decision because of the point of view from which you have presented it. So if you want to have sex conversation with your teenager, let it be such, let your sex conversation, let it be such that let it go beyond the mechanics of sex. Let it emphasize more on mutual respect. Let it emphasize more on love-like ethics. Let it emphasize more on the meaning of consent. Let it talk about decision making. Talk about healthy relationships. You need to let your teenager know the difference between a healthy relationship and unhealthy relationship. Let them understand what a healthy relationship looks like. Let them understand what an unhealthy relationship looks like. Let your teenager understand that a healthy relationship should be such that is respectful. Let him understand that a healthy relationship should be such that is very compassionate, generative, and hopeful. So many relationships our teenagers get themselves into are such are not healthy in any way. Our teenagers get into very abusive relationships. They just get themselves hooked up into a relationship or into a kind of friendship where they get abused. They just get messed up and they come out broken, come out battered. So your teenager needs to understand what a healthy relationship looks like. Let them understand the difference between a healthy relationship and unhealthy relationship. Like I said, many teenagers they get themselves into unhealthy relationship. The kind of relationship they get into are not in any way healthy. They are very abusive. The teenagers come out broken. They come out battered. And after that, they are no longer the same. Teenagers must not enter into abusive relationships before they can learn. They must not get broken. They must not get into abusive relationship before they can learn. So you need to guide them, let them understand the difference between a healthy relationship and unhealthy relationship. Whether you guide them or not, whether you speak to them about relationships or not, one day they find themselves getting involved in relationships. So you need to guide them on time. Make them understand that a healthy relationship is very respectful. A healthy relationship is very compassionate, is very hopeful. Let them not get into abusive relationships, come out broken and battered before they can learn. They can actually learn from your counsel. They can learn from mentorship like the one we provide at Teens Week. So our teenagers need to be guided. They need to be spoken to. Let them talk about these sex conversations. Talk to your teenager. Talk to them about it. Let them know that a healthy relationship is void of abuse and all forms of extortion. Let your teenager know. Let them also understand what mutual respect. Let them understand what mutual respect looks like in the context of friendship. Let your teenager understand what mutual respect looks like in the context of friendship. Let them understand the difference between love, infatuation, and intoxication. Teenagers are actually confused about the feeling they are having. They're actually confused. They can't actually say, is this love? Is this infatuation? Am I just being intoxicated or something? They're actually confused about the feeling they're having. Any 12 years old girl that starts having a tingling feeling without guidance will tell you that she's in love. So these are the reasons why you need to talk to your teenager. Speak to them. Open their eyes before the society out there start opening them. One thing you need to know is that if you're not speaking with your teenager, if you're not talking to them, somebody out there is talking to them. And how can you trust the source where they are getting their information from? How can you trust the source? This is the reason why you need to speak to your teenager. So you need to learn, you need to let your teenager learn from good counsel. Let them learn from good counsel. Let them learn from mentorship. They must not venture into abusive relationship. Come out before they can learn. They must not learn from bad experiences. They say experience is the best teacher, but that's not true. Good counsel is the best teacher. Reason is that experience doesn't leave you the same. When you go into it and get experience, you come out battered, you come out broken. You don't come out the same person. You come out broken. And as such, you must not have learned. So good counsel is actually the best teacher. It's better our teenagers learn from good counsel. Our world will be a better place when everyone is learning from good counsel. It's better they learn from mentorship. We provide mentorship at Purity Icon Network. We have a mentorship platform for teenagers. And we provide skills, we provide knowledge for teenagers out there. So get your teenagers exposed and get them exposed to Teens Week, get them exposed to mentorship platforms like ours, and talk to them, speak to them. Speak to them. The more consistent you make these little conversations with your teenagers, coupled with good mentorship, like the one I told you we provide at Teens Week, you can be very sure that your teenagers and your young adults will always make the right decisions wherever they find themselves. You can be very sure that your teenagers and your young adults will make the right decisions wherever they find themselves. I don't know. I hope I've been able to pass on value to you this evening. I hope I've been able to pass on value that after now, you will start up that sex conversation. You will find an entry point into your teenager. You will look for a way to speak, to build up a better relationship, and as such, your sex conversation with your child will become it will become better than it used to be. I don't know if we have some questions out there. Do we have some questions? If not, then we can. All right. Okay, no questions. All right, this is where we'll be wrapping it up for this evening. I want to appreciate every one of you that joined us in this session this evening. This is where we'll be wrapping it up. We are very much glad to bring to you this particular session, sex conversation with your teenager. We wanted to use this to reach out to the parents of our teenagers. It is a free gift to the parents of our teenagers. We wanted them to start having better relationship with their teenagers. It must not be all power courses and all that. You can find an entry point to talk. You can find a way to speak with your teenager. All right, this is where we'll be wrapping it up for today. And we will continue again by next weekend. We'll be having our teens conference. For every parent that has joined us this evening, please, we want you all to release your teenagers to join us in the teens conference. We'll be talking about a lot in that teens conference. Your teenagers will be greatly enriched in that teens conference. All right, this year we'll be wrapping it up for today. Let's say bye to you all.